Camille is with us. She is you're here from the education board, correct?
The Tooele County School Board of Education.
All right, outstanding. And we want you to come on, give us an update on what's going on with our education circumstance, and to fill us in on anything else we may have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always kind of start out my speech or whatever with, you may know that our schools are really full, but I started thinking about it today and I realized that there's a lot of our residents that may not realize or understand how full our schools are. So if you're not in a school or you haven't heard or haven't realized about all of the growth that's been happening in our county lately, our schools, most of our schools are at capacity or above capacity. So at this point, the school board has voted to go out and ask the voters to approve a bond. The bond process is how school districts are able to build new schools for their communities. A question or a concern that we always hear is, well, why don't the developers help pay for them, or why don't they contribute to it? And actually, it's against the law. School districts cannot charge an impact fee from the developers to help pay for schools. So we looked at the numbers. We had Zions Bank come in and they kind of analyzed all of the data and the numbers, and we were able to identify.
Camille, could we get you to move a little bit closer to the mic? There we go.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
So we looked at the numbers, and Zions Bank came in and they analyzed the numbers for us, and we were able to, review and find out that a bond is going to be paid off this year. Because of that, of course, the debt is going to be lowered. With the new schools, we want to put debt back into that spot, I guess, and be able to build 3 new schools and ultimately have a no net tax increase. So I think the final numbers that came out at the time were 2 or 3 cents of a difference. In some cases, depending on how much your property taxes are, you may see a slight decrease in your taxes as well. So that is where we're at. We're looking at building a high school in the Overlake area. They're kind of behind Home Depot. Mm-hmm. Junior high in Stansbury Park, which will be across the street from Stansbury High School, and an elementary school in Grantsville, which will be on the corner of Worthington and Nigrin.
Okay. All right. So on the southwest side of Grantsville, an elementary school, a junior high across from the high school in Stansbury, and there's already an elementary school in Overlake, so probably, right? Am I correct?
Right. Yeah, there is an elementary in Overlake. It's Overlake Elementary, actually.
Yeah, and so
junior high.
Probably just a little further north, put in a high school somewhere in there.
We've already purchased the property. It's right behind Home Depot.
Right behind it. Will it use the Home Depot road for?
It will. Yeah. So it's 57 acres behind there. So you will be able to access it from that Home Depot road.
Okay, so you can expect brand new drivers wrecking you driving out of Home Depot in your pickup truck with all your lumber.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, can we route that school's road to say we should build high school roads so they have their own road? It'd be windy and wavy so they can only go 10 miles an hour.
Lots of speed bumps.
Well, lots of speed bumps. Put all the retirement homes on it so the old people can come out and curse at them as they drive by. Concrete lawns, all the good stuff. Right. Anyways, that's just a side note. Okay, so
Camille,
are you there, Dave?
I think I lost you.
We've still got you.
Okay. Camille, didn't we just have a vote on a bond last year for $90 million?
So it was actually for $190 million. And yes, we did. I don't know if you remember or not, but the voter actually it did not get approved. So good and bad news is the good. Well, the bad news, I guess, in a way, is that it didn't get approved, but that doesn't solve the problem of our schools being at capacity. Right now, our Grantsville elementary schools are 120% at capacity. So you can imagine an average classroom size for Grantsville Elementary. And you want to keep in mind, we do have some students online, but they have 34 to 38 kids in a classroom. I can't imagine having that many third, fourth, or fifth graders in a classroom with one teacher. So, and that's how it was last year as well. So we went back as a board, reviewed the numbers, and we removed the security features. We were going to put $10 million worth of security into each of the schools. We removed that. We were able to get grants and some other funding kind of from the state to be able to do more security that way. And then we also removed another $10 million that we're hoping with the lower interest rates and kind of the steady cost of construction that we can keep the costs lower, or at least push for lower as much as we can. And then if we need to, as a school board, we have committed that we'll use our reserves if we need to.
So if it doesn't pass this time, can you put it up for election the next go around as well?
Yes.
So eventually you'll get it.
Yeah. So the concern with that though is so we have debt that's going to be paid off, and potentially your property taxes will decrease by $200. So if this doesn't pass, then next year I'll come back and I'll say, I know your property taxes just went down $200, but now I need to raise them $300 because interest rates or construction costs or whatever. And it's going to be even a harder issue to get solved for our kids if we have to increase taxes that much.
So the cost of construction is estimated to go up even beyond the COVID levels, is what you're saying?
No, right now they're estimated to stay at the level, at a steady level, but interest rates is what we're a little bit more concerned with. So if we can get the numbers and get the bond approval this year, then we can lock in that interest rate, and then they won't increase like next year or the following year.
And in the current proposal, do you have like any sports facilities planned to go in along with the schools that you're planning to build, that like a football stadium or anything like that?
Yeah, so the high school has planned a full, just like a Stansbury High School or Tooele High School. So yes, the football field, the baseball fields. The stadium actually is really neat because we were looking at proposed ideas of actually having the bleachers attached to the school building. So then that way you can utilize the space underneath the bleachers, like for restrooms or locker rooms or something along those lines. And they actually can design it in a way that you can lock off that part of the school building to the rest of the building, so you can utilize those bathrooms for your football games or marching band competitions or anything along those lines.
So a little more use out of the structure.
Exactly, yeah, kind of a community area more than still the school system, but a community area as well.
Now with this COVID numbers, I know quite a few of parents have chosen to keep their children at home to do a homeschooling model. How much effect has that had on classroom size?
When I last talked to the superintendent, he said we had about 1,500 students of our current students going online. And that's with about a 15,000 student base. So not as much as I thought more parents would have their kids go online than what we were originally anticipating. We are seeing more students on our online program though throughout the whole state. So our numbers, the student enrollment actually for the school district is showing almost 22,000 students, but a big chunk of that 5,000 plus students are all online from everywhere across the state. So right now, like I said, only about 1,500 students of our current Tooele County school kids are going online. So our classrooms, a little bit smaller than normal, but not we're seeing such the influx of new people coming in and they're not going online that we're still seeing an increase in all of our enrollment in classes.
Okay, so that's what, approximately 1%.
Right.
So yeah, that's not a substantial loss to make the classroom. You might lose one student, but then that's a matter of, and the county is growing, that is for sure.
Right.
And a lot of the growth is where you probably don't realize it until you really take a drive around different communities. It's growth that's happened relatively quick. On this show before, I've talked about how Grantsville grew to the north a decade ago, and I didn't know about it until 3 years ago, and I grew up in Grantsville. And
Right.
then you take a drive out past Hollywood, or out past Vegas Street, and it's shocking. A whole new neighborhood was built back there, and I didn't know about it.
Yeah. I moved out here about 8 years ago. And when I ran for the school board, I was putting up signs, campaign signs, and my area goes up through Lake Point. I live in Stansbury, but my area is up through Lake Point as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm driving up there, and there are whole neighborhoods that weren't there 5 years ago. I mean, we're 100 houses that all of a sudden I feel like overnight just appeared. I'm like, whoa, where did?
And I know Lake Point's got new buildings coming in right now.
Yeah,
There's new neighborhoods. Lake Point just got. I think Lake Point's going to double over the next 2 years,
I agree.
and that's
Yeah.
a realistic estimation.
Yeah, and I haven't even, and I've heard of the growth in Rush Valley, Stockton, all down there. I don't dare drive down there at this point. I just am like, well, I've seen the growth over in our one little area. Let's hold on until I'm ready for that one. I'm not ready to see it yet. So
Yeah, yeah. Um. So yeah, the schools are needed. I personally would like to see some more investment into alternative means of education. We have talked about how Blue Peak, I think, is doing some interesting things and some positive things for the education, and I don't know if that's going to overall change the map or change what we need or what we expect. But I do know that, like, Stansbury offers some courses that Tooele and Grantsville don't offer, especially when you get to the high school level. That's when
right,
you start getting specialized education. And I think the more we can go online and allow students that uh, may possibly be geographically withheld from the market can experience other things. I know, like, for instance, Stansbury has a robotics course, from what I understand. Grantsville and Tooele do not. Grantsville has probably more farming courses that Stansbury probably does not. And Tooele has an automotive course, or it had when I went there. I don't know if it still does, that Grantsville did not. And I think figuring out a means to allow a student from one school attend a course available at a different school that's not available to them at their school, I think that's something we need to look into. We need to look into more mobility. And right now, you're in Stansbury, and me and Dave are both in Tooele, talking over the internet, and education can probably maybe not be done over Zoom, but it can be incorporated somehow. I think we need to start looking at that as an education system. I know that my son wanted to do robotics when he was in school, and out here in Tooele or in Grantsville, that wasn't offered to him. That wasn't available. But he lived in another state where it was available, and that was part of the contraction on why he stayed in that other state through high school.
so and this was pre-COVID. We have, well, the school district has a fabulous CTE director, career and technical education director, and she has done a really great job making those opportunities available for different students. So, like you mentioned, how Grantsville doesn't have a mechanic class. A big reason why they don't is because they don't have the room. So she has been able to help those students that are interested in it. They can either come up to Tooele and take the class, or they can also go to Tooele Tech and take the diesel mechanic class. As a high school student, they don't have to pay tuition. They have to pay for some of their fees. So, for example, my son is a junior and he's taking welding over at Tooele Tech, and he'll end up graduating with his welding certificate. So there's definitely opportunities out there. And I like to think, and I realize maybe there's some kids that haven't talked to their counselors or maybe don't quite understand, but there's definitely the opportunities out there that if something isn't offered at Stansbury or Tooele, there's a way to get it for them. So like you were saying, like Zoom, I know there's a lot of classes out in Wendover that are the kids participate through Zoom, so that they can have the same advantages as the Tooele kids. So
Very
we're working
good.
on it. It's being pushed through. It's not perfect. There's always
Obviously, it's hard to bring a Wendover student into the TATC, and I think that is an excellent resource that we have. It's an excellent technical education institute type place, and I'm glad that our schools are using that. I know my nephew did a lot of his pre-diesel mechanics courses through there, so that is excellent, and it's gained him an opportunity in life where he otherwise wouldn't have, where he's honestly he's better off than all of his peers that went to college,
right.
because he hit the ground running, making a livable wage. He's able to afford to be married, buy a house, and have a child on that.
Well, and they offer different classes. For example, they last year started offering a composites class where Marisa, who's also on the school board, her son did the composites class. And she's just said the other day, every week he has a new employer approaching him to interview. Like Boeing was looking at him for a long time, a lot of those really big companies. And as we get, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but we actually teach our elementary kids. We have 6 different languages in our school district.
Yes,
right now.
I do know about that. We have French. Is it Cantonese? Is it Mandarin?
Mandarin.
We have German. What other languages do we have? Portuguese.
And French, Russian, and Spanish.
See, that right there is outstanding. And you're hitting these kids when they start out in first grade learning this, correct? So they become fluent in it, and it also teaches their mind to work different. It teaches them to think laterally instead of up and down. So I think that's a benefit on just the way they think. So I'm really thankful for that. I know there may be some people who balk at that, but I mean, all the studies show that children who learn multiple languages have a lot of advantages, not just in the communication, but in how they think.
Yeah. Well, and my son actually has been participating in the German program, and he's in 6th grade this year. He's incredible. He's fluent with German. But this is the first year we have kids in 7th grade now with the dual language program. And as they get more experience and they get older, we are the only school district in the country that offers 6 languages. And I can't even imagine what our workforce is going to look like in another 5 or 10 years when we have all these kids that are fluent in all these different languages, and we can offer that to, various businesses throughout the world.
Mm-hmm. Offer it to the world, and also offer this. Once these kids start graduating and flooding out, hopefully we don't lose these brilliant young minds to, the larger states. Hopefully we can bring industry here so that these, these little geniuses that we're making, we can keep them around. But even if we do, that's still a benefit to,
Yeah.
industry.
So I'd like to bring it back to the sports for the new bond. Does each school have its own football team?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, except for like Dugway and Wendover do not, because they don't have enough kids.
Yeah, they have basketball in Dugway, right? And baseball.
Right. And Wendover is big on basketball.
Yeah, I think football requires a larger team.
Yeah.
And when these new schools are built, is it a requirement that they have the sports editions with them, or can they be proposed without, like have a dual option? Maybe the population would rather see them focus more on curriculum rather than sports, or maybe they would have the vote with all the sports, but having the dual ability to decide between the two options during the vote would be an interesting perspective. Has that been thought of?
So yes and no. So something that I think a lot of people misunderstand is, because the school district has reached out or talked to architects about what the new school will look like, or concept ideas, stuff like that, does not mean that every idea has been finalized. And we actually have to get the funding in place before we can finalize any of the details. So at this point, yes, there is the concept of a football field, baseball field, all those kind of things. But something I have learned just in the last couple of years with having my own high schooler is a football field is used a lot more than just for football. So for example, the track is used for the ROTC program. They do a lot of their physical training out on the football field. The marching band actually spends more time on a football field than a football team does. And so, as there's some people out there that feel, maybe like you were saying, the football field or the sports maybe aren't such a good investment. We should spend money in other areas. But there's also that other side that you have to look at of how much more kids learn in these different programs. And it may look like it's only for the football team, but there's more that goes into it than just the football team.
I think one of his big questions is, and this is a common thing that comes up, we both come from a strong libertarian bent, is that when they mix the sports and education, especially on the collegiate level, it dilutes the education and makes it to where the colleges seem to be more centered around sports, and that dilutes a lot of that. I don't know how much that impacts the high schools. I'm sure there's some impact there, but we have witnessed that it has had I don't know if an adverse effect on colleges and universities, but there has been an effect to where the sports organizations of them kind of dominate the education responsibilities that they carry.
Well, and I think another concern, or kind of to go along with that same thing, is school size. A lot of people are pushing, saying we want big 6A schools. Well, when you get into those 6A schools, that's when you kind of get lost in, well, are we doing 6A schools so that we can be competitive with the sports, or are we really doing that for the curriculum? Because we're not going to get any more curriculum or the academic side of it by having a big 6A school. So that's why, as a school district, we've looked at the 4A size or the 5A size. So that way we could have the sports and all of the competitiveness stay within our own region and out with our own county. And it doesn't have to be so expensive. We're not spending transportation costs to send kids to Logan. and they're still getting that experience, but we can still focus monies and funds on that academic side as well that can help kids learn all of the other things that they need to understand.
I would like to see, I don't know. I don't know the studies on high school uh, sports diluting the education side, but I think it would be interesting to see um, different schools uh, focus on maybe different academic pursuits, which allows maybe, and then after that, opening up the different schools to students who maybe live in a different town to maybe transfer up there, even if just for one or two classes. I do like that idea, so they can search for different pursuits, like the auto mechanics at Tooele that can stay there. But the new Tooele High School, can I pick the name of their team? I've got some brilliant ideas. But anyways, the ability for that school to maybe bridge the gap between auto mechanics. You've got a little more agricultural learning in Grantsville, and figure out how to bridge that gap to make like an intermediate area and make it real dynamic. Or you can have teachers move around between schools and have student body stay if the if there's enough demand for that, where a teacher spends a couple periods a week in a different school.
Yeah. And we actually already do that with the ROTC program right now, where
Uh-huh.
Major Anderson goes around to the different schools. And then kind of, it's a newer idea. So Farmington High School does it as well. Um, each classroom, a teacher isn't assigned to a classroom. So if you remember when you're back in school or when I was back in school, you knew like every day you go to English in the same classroom
It was
or,
tough. It's a long time ago when I was chipping cuneiform letters out of clay. It was a
right?
long time, and then burning it in. But anyways, go on.
So what Farmington High School does is the teacher isn't assigned to a classroom, but just the subject is. And so you would still go to a particular room for your English, but you may have Mrs. Jones one day and then Mr. Bob the next day. So teachers kind of, they rotate around more than the kids rotate around. So that way the entire building is being utilized and you're not wasting any space by having any rooms open, and the kids are able to maneuver and kind of, they use every room of the high school and not just certain rooms throughout the different days. But it's kind of cool because it's kind of that same idea that you're talking about, that intermediate in between, basic mechanics and diesel mechanics, and they can still get that level of information that they need because their teachers moving from different areas and they just kind of stay in that same classroom.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I have an off-topic question.
Yeah.
Camille, do they teach square dancing in the Tooele schools?
Do they teach square dancing?
I think we learned that in elementary school.
Do do your partner?
Not
So it's
square
funny.
dancing, but the foxtrot
Because
was
I
there.
remember.
Yeah. I know I'm trying to remember when my high schooler was in elementary. I know they did a sixth grade dance, but my current elementary kid would not tell me if he was learning square
That's because it was
dancing.
a he.
Yeah, there's no way.
He
But my
was
daughter might.
mortified.
She's only in first grade, so as we get older, she might tell me if they're learning square dancing.
Oh, I remember seventh grade, eighth grade. They packed the gym at least with 2 weeks of square dancing where I grew up in high school. But what about gun safety? Do they teach gun safety to the residents of this county in our schools?
So different classes, so like the ROTC class, there's a level of maybe gun safety as far as like they don't get into like a detailed here's how you hold a gun or anything along those lines. They have those ones kind of for show, kind of a thing. I don't know if you heard or not, but the school district actually recently got a grant for Tooele High School. With that grant, it actually will monitor, if there's an incident in the school, it will be able to record whatever that incident is. And it also can detect if someone, as they're walking up to the buildings, if they are carrying like a shotgun or a rifle or something along those lines. And I apologize, I don't know all of the details. It's a brand new service, and so I'm not sure exactly how they're able to identify any of it.
I
But for the most part, I know there's like a wilderness class in 8th grade that the kids can take, but I don't believe there's any gun safety with that.
I think more of what Dave's asking is a positive, a two-way positive gun safety course.
Right. And it's just hard because it's not something that is on a curriculum of a particular class. So it would have to be something, because the state school board is actually who decides what curriculum goes into the different classrooms. So it would have to be approved on a state level. And like off the top of my head, I can't think of a particular class that necessarily does.
What about 4A involvement in the schools? I know 4A in Dugway years ago was quite involved in the school out there, and I know that the 4A out in Dugway offered some gun use and gun safety courses. I know I actually taught a muzzleloader course to them. I'm wondering, is the 4A, does it still have an involvement in any of the Tooele schools?
I have not heard of any of that involvement.
And
That's not I don't know everything that's going on
yeah,
at the school.
well, that also comes with student desire to be involved. Like the FFA is dying, and it's not dying because the school district wants it to go away. It's dying because the students just don't want to be involved in it as much anymore. It doesn't intrigue them like it did, 20 or 30 years ago. So maybe something to look at is, if we want something like that involved in a school, we've got to go through the state school board.
Right.
We've got
I
to.
heard from the FFA kids, they don't want to work as hard as their parents did.
Yeah, they don't want to.
Hard work, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if you know Bob Gowans. He's actually running for school board this year, and he's big into FFA. I know him and I have we talk a lot about FFA. It's an awesome program. I think it's great for our school district and great for our kids and everybody involved. And it's interesting because you're right. The kids aren't as interested, but it's also changing. One of the things that they talk about is now they use special collars on the cows and how they monitor them and do different things. And FFA kids aren't so into the technology side of that. They would rather get out and get their hands dirty and take care of the cows.
It's funny. When I was in, the kids didn't like FFA because it was old Stone Age boring stuff, and now they don't like it because it's new tech stuff that they're inundated with on a daily basis, and they would rather go out and do it. Right. Yeah. I was a novice member of the FFA for a little while, but it has, I don't know, it's all student driven. Everything we do, I guess, has to be student driven.
Yeah.
But I wonder if a shooting sports class, much like an archery class, but maybe archery would be involved, but a total shooting sports class was offered, would students want to take it? I think that's one of the big drivers. You'd have to find that out, and then you'd want to develop a course on it and figure out what the state would require for you to develop a course on it. Get your instructors together, and then find a school that would be willing and able to implement it. And to implement it, you'd want to have you could probably do intermediary stuff inside the gym, with air rifles and trap targets, and then to go out and do real stuff, you would have to do that at an actual range, probably up at the Lee K or something like that. And then you'd have to hope that the parents would allow their children to do it, because a lot of people's there's a lot of stigma around firearms right now, and I think it's unduly so. But I would hope, and it's my personal feeling, that a robust education on firearms right now and their safety and that, and familiarization, would hopefully alleviate a lot of the, strife that we've had throughout the nation with firearms, and bring a respect for them back. But that's just me shooting off the hip without an actual study done. I do know that when firearms were more prevalent, or not, firearms weren't more prevalent, they're more prevalent now than they've ever been. But when the education and the experience with them was more prevalent, there was less less negative interactions with them in the community. And now that they've withdrawn, there may be, maybe those are an argument where it's not a causation of correlation, instance, but maybe it is. I don't know.
So my mind just triggered. There is a criminal law class. So they talk a lot about like being a police officer. They actually take different field trips. They do lots of different things. When they teach the kids, so CTE, the Career and Technical Education, they actually will do, they call it corridor days, and it's where they bring kids out to the Blue Peak or the CLC, and they tour that building, and they also will tour Tooele Technical College and also Utah State University. But when they go around Blue Peak and the CLC, they actually, they can go into the classroom, they meet with the teachers, and the criminal law class, she actually, and she did this 2 years ago and she's retired, but she would have goggles so that the kids could see what it would be like if they were impaired. She had a model gun so that she could see what police officer guns are and what they look like. And I don't know for sure what her curriculum is, but I'm sure along some lines there's some gun safety and some at least introductions to, what that route would look like, what the field would look like, and how the kids could pursue that kind of a career if they were interested.
Yeah, I guess that would be a really basic safety course. I would, I don't know. I think training the kids in range rules, those are basic rules that apply anytime there's a firearm in the room, and to not harp on about that, but there's 4 basic rules that apply to every firearm, and to teach them how to inspect it for what status it's in, and then how to use it. But beyond that, to teach them to use it to be effective with target shooting, or if they want to hunt or anything else. But I think that would be that'd be a fun one to fight. There would be a lot of parents that would not enjoy that at all, and there might be some parents who would really enjoy it. I think the ideal there would be you'd have to find the school and the student body that would be willing to accept that. And I think you'd even see a lot of student body come out against that being taught in their schools. Maybe, I don't know, that'd be.
Well, it's mandatory that you sign up for the draft when you're 18, Jared. So my thought process is somewhere along the line. I mean, how many kids play with a gun that they find at their house and they don't know what they're doing and they end up hurting themselves? I know I've lost friends that way. And schools, I had archery. We had archery in gym class, and I feel kind of like, we're funding football, basketball, robotics. Yeah, but as men, we all have to sign up for the draft, and we're all going to be exposed to that potentially. So it should be something that, hey, if we're going to spend money on football fields and stuff like that, you you gotta provide the things that will end up possibly being mandatory for manhood. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that was the perspective that I'm kind of leaning in on.
I agree with you, but we don't operate in a bubble.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, as you mentioned, not only parents and students on board, but also legislators. Who would
Oh
have
yeah, yeah. There's another fun
to
one.
get it funded, and those people think on a different planet sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that maybe that'd be something if we got anyone out in the community who maybe we'll assign Dave to take this on. I would be happy to help him write a curriculum and all that other stuff, and then Dave can run it up the hill. And who knows? Maybe it wouldn't be that hard to put in. Maybe they would say, you find us a school, find us a student body, and get us the cost of buying, I don't know. I would say in any class like that, I'd want no more than I would buy 6 firearms, have no more than 5 people on the firing line at the time. There's a couple other requirements. But things like that. So you'd have to buy 5 air rifles, because those are 6 air rifles, and then I would buy for the firearm use, I would buy a single shot bolt action 22. That'd be the main use firearm I'd buy. You'd want to buy some trap targets, and then also figure out the cost of leasing Lee K. And then for the course, I would say I would wrap it in with archery course, with a general physical education course. It'd be a 3-week-long course in general.
Right after square dancing.
Right after square dancing. Yeah. I remember taking that. I was in 4th grade. I was in, what was my teacher's name? Oh, man. What was his name? Anyways, I remember taking the square dancing and foxtrot. It was a general dance course that we had to take for, I don't know, it felt like forever, but it was probably a week and a half long. And we'd have to go out there and dance with girls. And in 4th grade, I was not prepared for that. Maybe someone else in my age group will remember that course. But yeah, I think it was 4th grade. But yeah, that I think the only way to get that in there would be for somebody to take that and run that up the chain.
It doesn't seem like it should have to be forced in there. It is, to me, I mean, we're spending all the money on the sports. The safety seems more important from my perspective. We're a gun Second Amendment population. It's hard to vote for a bond when I feel like we're not preparing our students properly, but that's just my perspective. Maybe.
I could go down to any school in any class tomorrow, and in a half hour I could teach all children what to do when they see a firearm, and I could do it knowledgeably. And it would literally take a half hour. It's literally just a step-by-step process on how to deal with the firearm, just to make sure it's safe, make sure it's not a hazard. But I would like to see, if we're going to do it, let's expand it out and let's wrap it into, somebody's given feedback on the line, but actually how to use it, how to make it a proficient class. Wrap it in with archery and square dancing and dodgeball. Oh, we can't do dodgeball anymore either, can we? Camille, is dodgeball out? Is that not allowed?
They play it a different way. My 6th grader was telling me about it the other day, and I can't remember. I remember what he was saying, but I was like, it sounds like dodgeball. And he's like, yeah, but we can't hit each other with the ball. And I was like, well, then it's not dodgeball. If you can't hit each other, you have to be able to throw the ball at each other. So
I know there's a dodge baseball out there. We're getting
Maybe that's what he was playing.
yeah. All right, we're getting a little bit of feedback on the line, but yeah, the Dodge baseball. That's like kind of like dodgeball, except you're set up in a baseball rink, and that way, no one student gets picked on and abused. Like in dodgeball, the slow kids always aimed for first because, you know, you're just gonna. That's just the way your team's gonna win. I was usually that slow kid, so you know.
The one thing I would like to say though is I know, when we drive past, like for example, Stansbury High or some of the schools, of course, like you always see the big sport things first because the football field is big, right? Or baseball fields, that kind of stuff. But I would encourage to look past that, maybe even, go inside the school and see, for example, in Stansbury down there, CTE Hall and what their FFA kids are doing. Those kids are doing an amazing job down there. And it's interesting though, because where their classroom actually is on one side of the school, and then they have to cross the hall to go to their welding classroom. But their welding classroom is so full and so like the actual classroom is so small, it's at capacity for how many students they have in there. So they have to take turns, and their classroom isn't, their class time isn't very long. So I get the perspective of that you don't want to see like all the money go towards the kids just on sports, but a new school would provide these kids a new welding classroom where they actually could have a welding shop that was built for them to be able to go out and use. We're saying with the woodworking classrooms, we have out at Stansbury again, because there's so many kids in that classroom, they all have to take turns for safety reasons to be in the shop, and not all of them are getting the shop time that they need to be able to learn how to do all these skills. So yes, it does look like sports is a major focus, but it's only because it's on the outside part of the school and it's big and in some cases obnoxious, right? But I would encourage everybody to take another step and look at more of what's going on in the actual classrooms. Another example is Tooele High School at any time has 700 kids in a portable every day. That's a huge safety issue. That's kids outside in the snow, walking on ice, all those kind of things, because there's not enough room in the building for them. So those are kind of the concerns and the issues that as a school board, we want to help our students and what we want to solve. And yeah, sports on some people's mind is their number one priority, but it's not everybody's priority. And as a school district and a school board, we have to look at all of our students and all of the kids and their concerns. So.
I get that. Yeah, it is. Whereas the hands-on stuff like woodworking, welding, ag mechanic, if you go to any canyon here in the county and any of those park benches around any of the canyons, those were built by Grantsville High School back in the 90s by, I was a part of building some of those, and all those, I guess, picnic tables, for lack of a better word, those were built by high school students. So it is good to have that availability. So they can be also of value. I think we're having a bad connection now. Camille, before we cut you loose, is there any other information you want to put out? Like any websites that people should go to if they have any other questions, or any lead-ins, or if they want to nominate the name of the new school's mascot. But absolutely. I'm not going to put that in the show notes because I'm going to take that one over myself.
So yeah, it's just the school district website, so tooeleschools.org. There's all the information about the bond. There's positive information and con information. So if you want to see both sides of it, that's the school district will provide both of that. Also, if people have questions or concerns, I'm always open messages or emails. Feel free to contact me or any of the other school board members. I know all of us are more than happy to answer any of the questions.
All right. And I'm showing the TooeleSchools.org right here. If you have any questions, all the contact information is there, and they're also assigned to districts. And then there's a district map down there, so you can contact the correct board member that you need to get a hold of. I think Zoom has had enough of being on of us broadcasting right now, but thanks for so much for coming on, Camille. And if there's ever any other information you need to put out, go ahead and feel free to hop on. Or if any of the other board members need to put information out, hop on. They can just reach out to us and shoot us a message, and we'll get them on there.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. This has been great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Camille.
Hopefully next time Zoom won't decide to start making us all scratchy. All right. Well, you guys have a good night, and we'll reconvene next week. We've got Halloween coming up for everyone, so hopefully
That trunk or treat.
Yeah, the Trump or Treat, I think, is happening this upcoming Sunday at it's at Grantsville High School. So they'll be doing I don't know if they're doing the drive around again, the train, or if they're just doing the Trump or Treat there. But either way, Trump or Treat. So that'll be on November 1st. And so if anyone wants to, or that's not this upcoming Sunday, that's the Sunday after, correct? Yeah, I'm mixed up. The Sunday after on November 1st, they've got that going on. We'll probably try to get Chris to hop on and talk about it before that happens one last time. Probably over Zoom again because I am Typhoid Mary right now, and I don't want to get anyone sick. Got any leaving notes,
Did you get
Dave?
tested yet, Jared?
I got tested. It was not a fun experience. They shoved the big Q-tip down my head, poked my brain with it, made my nose itch. But anyways, I should find out the next couple days if I'm a disease-ridden, addled sucker or if I just got a common cold. Hopefully it's just a common cold. All right, Dave, any final notes for everyone?
It was a long Tooele happy hour.
Yeah,
I'm
this
glad
was
we
a
got
long
through
one.
this one.
It'll be
And I hope
broken
you're
down
feeling
into.
better.
We'll break it down into 3 parts as well, just if there's something particular you wanna be involved in, we'll break it down further. Thanks everyone for joining us. It wasn't that we didn't get a lot of listeners tonight. I don't know what else is going on.
I didn't advertise this one, so maybe that has something to do with it as well.
Could be. So, but we'll break it down again. YouTube, BizShoot, everywhere. Like, share, subscribe, follow, all the other stuff. And if there's somewhere you like to consume podcasts and you can't find us on there, let me know so I can chase it down. We just got on to iHeartRadio this week, so we're now on iHeartRadio as well.
All right. Well, now we're big time.
Yeah, big time. All right, you guys have a good night.
Take care.